Some of them I believe to be mutilated of the same fashion that was shown in Linda Howe's book, The Strange Harvest. I'm satisfied that I personally saw some mutilated carcasses, certainly that look identical to some of the ones that Linda Howe showed in The Strange Harvest from back during the 70s.
And you obviously talked to these ranchers also.
Right, and in one particular case when my son and I found a black and white bull that had all the classic signs of the stripped away lower jaw, one ear, and the rectum cord out, and the carcass had not been touched by any coyotes or anything. There were no tracks around it. When I went and approached the ranchers about it, they just rode away, the group that were there, and I asked a couple of other neighboring ranchers, and they says, oh yeah, somebody drove by and shot that bull, and it laid out there. Which I don't buy that at all. It was a mutilated cow. When I actually looked over the sheriff's records and would talk with people who had held prominent positions in those counties off the record, they told me that from their own experience of investigating these fresh kills, that they personally believed that it was done by something from outside this planet. They say absolutely they don't believe it was coyotes or any type of animal, and there was no tracks. There was just no way anybody could have gotten into the area and done this type of mutilation without being seen by somebody or caught, or at least they would have left some tracks. And the fact that there's been thousands of these mutilations around the country and not one has ever been solved. Not one. There's not one sheriff's department or police department that has one solved. And so, like I say, these people that hold positions in the community, they don't want to go on a TV camera and say, yeah, I think it was done by some type of aliens. But off the camera, they say that they believe, because at the same time, the strange lights and the number of supposedly alleged UFO sightings in the area, that there's some connection between the mutilation of the cows and the strange lights in the sky. And all I was trying to do was either prove or disprove that was going on. And to my satisfaction, I believe that the cows are being mutilated by something that nobody that I know of has explained satisfactorily how it's being done.
In July of 1947, the world's first story of a crashed flying saucer came out of Roswell, New Mexico. The story was written and released to the press by Base Public Information Officer Lieutenant Walter Hott, under orders from his boss, Roswell Army Airfield Commander, Colonel William Blanchard.
I got a phone call from Colonel Blanchard, and he pretty much dictated, not all the verbiage, but it hit the salient points, telling me about the flying disc that we assumedly had pieces of, and who had gone and gotten it, and what was being done with it. And I wrote the release from the information that he gave me over the telephone. A rancher had brought some material in, or had told the sheriff about some material that he had on his ranch that he had found, and the intelligence officer of the base had been sent out to the ranch to pick up this material and bring it back into the base. And that Major Marcel, who was the intelligence officer, was going to fly it onto 8th Air Force headquarters to give it to General Ramey, who was our immediate commander.
The remains found were taken by Major Marcel to his home in Roswell, just down the street from Walter Hott. Major Marcel showed the retrieved material to his wife and son before returning to the crash site. This time, truckloads of the wreckage were brought to this hangar, and quickly the building was secured.
Well, I went to my normal duty station, which was my building where we normally worked on the flight line, and later on that day I went to the building where we had these flyway kits stored, and we had been going in there almost on a daily routine basis, and that particular day there was an armed guard at the building and we could not get in. What was in that building or why we couldn't get in, it was never explained to us, but we couldn't get in the building that we had normally been going into on a daily or 2 or 3 times a week basis. We all had top secret clearance because we were atomic outfit, and we had all the necessary credentials to do everything that we did on the base, but we couldn't go in that building anymore that day.
In recent years, many new witnesses have come forward with more details of the UFO crash of 1947. Among them are several neighbors of rancher Mac Brazel, who remember Mac coming by their homes to show them pieces of the strange material he found in the Corona Desert.
In 1947, I think it was about the 1st of July, and he came over with some something that looked like wood that he had found on the ranch and wanted us to go look at it, and we didn't have the time or means to go do it, and we talked him into taking it to Roswell and showing them down there, and they brought him back to find where it was at, and then took him back down there and kept him several days in Roswell while they cleaned up everything. And when he came back, he said they told him it was a weather balloon. If he ever found another, and he wouldn't report it. The piece he brought up was about the size of a lead pencil and about 4 inches long, 4 or 5 inches long, and it was kind of a tan color, kind of like what we'd say plastic now, but we didn't have plastic then, and you couldn't cut it or burn it or whittle it, you know. It very, very hard. It was very light, it seemed to be, and he said that the stuff that looked kind of like aluminum foil, he said you'd crumble it up and then it'd straighten out. It wouldn't stay creased. It'd just open out, you know, but he couldn't get any of it off to bring up. He said he couldn't cut it or anything. We told him it was probably a UFO or a flying saucer, and we'd heard there's a reward out for it, and go down and collect it. So, you know, we thought maybe he would. I guess I told him not to say anything. I don't know. But he didn't. He just said if he ever found anything else, they wouldn't find out about it. So I guess he was a little upset about him keeping him.
Neighbor Marianne Strickland also remembers a visit by her friend, the rancher Mac Brazel.
He came by after this incident, and he had been humiliated and detained for several days, and he was a reliable, solid person, dependable, and he was, I think, anxious to square himself with his neighbors when he came by. I mean, to assure them that what he did was on the up and up. He came to the corral. Mac was living alone at this ranch where he was the manager. His wife lived in Alamogordo. And Mac would come and visit with the men in the family. He came into the house once in a while, not too often. And the time that he brought the sample of what he had picked up, he was at the corral. My daughter and 2 sons and husband were at the corral, and they saw it. My daughter says that it could be crumpled up and straightened right back out. He was telling my family about how badly the Army people had treated him down here. And it amounted to humiliation and detention when there wasn't any good reason. He had come in good faith. And they didn't accept it that way, or didn't appear to. He said they threw him in jail. He said if he ever found anything like that again, he would never show it to them. He would never bring it in. He had done so as what he thought was a good citizen, and he had been humiliated and mistreated, and he was very disturbed.
Phyllis McGuire is the daughter of Sheriff George Wilcox. She too remembers the day when rancher Mac Brazel came by her father's police station with the material from a debris field on the ranch he managed.
He told me that Brazel had been in to report a flying saucer, and I asked him if he believed that, and he said yes, because I don't know why he would come into my office and tell me this story for no reason at all. He had some material with him, he said, which I did not know what it was. And he said that he had sent some deputies out there, and they had seen some things. They had seen a corral that had some of the material in it, and they had seen a large burnt spot on some grass about the size of a football field. My mother told me years later that the Air Force asked them not to say anything at all about what had happened, and they changed the story that the paper had put out originally to say that what had been found was a weather balloon. She said that there were bodies and an unidentified flying object on the ground. There were bodies too, but that they stopped the investigation that the sheriff's office was going to do because the Air Force wanted them to.
Yet another story of the strange debris comes from Charlie Schmid. In 1947, he handled pieces of the strange debris on location in the Corona Desert.
There was some material looked just like tinfoil, but quite strong. And you could ride it up in your hand, and it'd just straighten out, no kinks, no nothing. It just straightened out by itself. Then there were some pieces of material that looked like aluminum, real light stuff, but strong. It was about 16 inches long, about 2.5 inches, maybe a 1/4 inch thick. But you couldn't bend it or twist it or do anything with it. Even by putting it up against a rock and jumping up and down, you could not bend this material. And then there were some